Kate Jenkins, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you, Sarah.
In 2018, you said a third of Australians have been sexually harassed in the workplace. In 2020, you said sexual harassment is endemic in Australian society. In 2022, you said less than 1 in 5 people who experienced sexual harassment reported it. As you come to the end of your tenure now, how much further do we have to go to make people secure from sexual harassment at work?
I feel like we're in Australia on the precipice of real change. So we definitely all need to focus on this, every workplace, every industry. But since at those moments in time, Australia has really recognised this as a problem, which was something in 2018 I think we didn't have.
I'll come back to that idea of a precipice in a moment, but just to get a sense of what you've learnt in the role, how universal is this problem?
In this role, I've learnt that this is a problem that exists across the world, first of all. It's not just sexual harassment, there's also discrimination and abuses of power and lack of accountability. I've seen it globally, but in Australia, probably what I've learnt is there used to be this sense of there's some bad people, a few bad apples, usually bad men. They're in particular industries. You know, there was a lot of discussion with the Weinstein allegations. This is a media and entertainment industry. But what I've learnt over the time in this role is no matter what industry I've gone into, there are issues that we can do better at. So whether it's mining, legal, sport, in universities. So I know it's everywhere, but I also know once we all sort of start to realise it's a problem, we can make change.
Just a quick question about that. You raise legal and sport. What is it about those particular... Are there things that are particular to the world of sport, for example?
In most cases, when I've turned my attention to an industry, I start with looking at what are the big societal drivers, and gender inequality is a big one, abuse of power is a big one. But then in almost every case, I then look at what's the specific circumstances in this industry. And so if I look at sport and think of the review we did of gymnastics and sport more generally, you've got an industry where coaches have a lot of power, where people, like young people in gymnastics, 80% of those athletes were girls under 12, so they're really not empowered. There's an aspiration to go to the Olympics, there's limited positions, highly competitive, parents who also are living their dream. So there's a potential for huge power imbalance and gender inequality and the opportunity for abuse.
And silencing, presumably.
And silencing. So I think that and the high profile, so the world's watching and we all, the sponsorship that comes from success.
You were before becoming Commissioner, you were an employment lawyer for a long time. Did you experience sexual harassment yourself in your professional career?
I think most women of my age, over 50, have their stories to recount, and I most certainly do and did, like all of my peers. I often...
An incredible statement when you think about it. Most women in their 50s who have had careers or been in a workplace for an extended period of time have a story. I know the figures say that, but it's still...
Yes.
It is still an extraordinary statement, isn't it?
It is, and that shows how normalised it was. Like, I would just say the distinction was how harmful was it for your career prospects, and through doing the National Inquiry, I know for some women it really derailed their career, and as well as causing harm, it really derailed their professional and economic futures. If you've trained as a lawyer and then you decide you can't work in a law firm because you've had a bad experience, you're probably not earning the same amount that you would have if you'd followed through your training path. And that's what we heard repeatedly.
And let me I don't want to labour the point, but just in relation to what happened to you, what did you learn about the difficulties of reporting and what happens when you report?
Yes, so I think a lot of the normalised sexual harassment that I experienced was just that you go out, someone makes a comment, you're dealing with a client, whatever it might be. So as a young woman in the 90s, that was part of the deal, and you had some unspoken protocols. There was only one occasion where I felt something had happened that was inappropriate, and I felt as a practitioner, as someone who was doing sexual harassment law, that I should raise it. My observation on what happened to me, and also that I've seen ever since, is it's really hard to raise an issue about co-workers that you're working with every day, the systems really turn it into some sort of Rolls-Royce investigation, and often you're just trying to raise an issue that you would rather it didn't happen. It was mostly okay, but I did think, you know what, I'd rather not have to spend the time, have the focus somehow come on to me about this issue, and I'd rather not cause this disruption of my relationship with my peers.
You did a landmark study in the culture at Parliament House. How much has actually changed in the way people go about their business?
What I have seen in Parliament is significant change very quickly. We did 500 interviews one-on-one. We had protections for people to tell us what happened. And out of that, we were able to then give back to the Parliament a report that described what that experience was like. And that description said that 1 in every 2 people there had experienced sexual harassment, bullying, or actual or attempted sexual assault.
1 in 2.
1 in 2. So it was really significantly concerning. But we were also able to say, we understand from our experience what's going on, but we can see that there's real change needed, real supports on just standard human resources practices. Something really unique about having 227 parliamentarians, or as I often say, 227 small businesses that have really high profile, important work to do under a lot of pressure.
Do you think it is functioning better?
What I'm being told and what I'm seeing is yes. It's staff are telling me how much better a workplace it is. Parliamentarians are, even journalists who work in there are saying they feel safer. They feel more prepared to speak up. I'm told, jokingly, I think when some things happen, my name is being used in a
sometimes
way.
not jokingly. I think yesterday there was an issue in Parliament. Your name was invoked when a slur was made against a gay MP and her family. It made me actually wonder, given those standards that you set out, do you think it's possible there could come a time when we no longer need to invoke your name in?
I think that we're at that moment of a turning point in Parliament, and I think that's true in all Australian workplaces, actually.
Does it still shock you when you see it in front of you? Harassment of any sort?
Yes. I just do not understand harassment. I do not understand the sense that this should be a normal part of life. I do not understand people who can make an offensive sexual comment and then say it's a joke. It's not funny to me. But having said that, I'm very empathetic that we're in a time of change. And I'm also optimistic that we are changing.
Kate Jenkins, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.